like to say thank you for allowing Peggy and I to share this time and my story during your 250th anniversary year and the 35th anniversary of your becoming a reconciling congregation. I want to personally thank you for your ministry as it has touched my life. I am a reader. And when I was exploring my own gender identity, I was looking for information. And I found a copy of Made in God's Image, resources for dialogue about the church and gender difference. In fact, when I came out to my mother last year, it was one of the resources that I passed along to her to try to help her understand this important reality in my life. Thank you for your continuing reflection upon the intersectionality of race and gender, class, and sexuality. May you continue to find new ways of helping those who are still struggling along their journey to living authentically. Today is Transfiguration Sunday, when we get a glimpse of a hidden reality in the life of Christ. For most part, Jesus appeared to be just another human person. He looked like any other human being. When Jesus was a baby, he looked like a baby. He acted just like a human baby. He sounded like an actual human baby. He smelled like a human baby because he was totally human. As a child, Jesus acted like any other human child. Jesus even got in a little trouble going off without telling his parents where he was. See, Jesus was a typical kid, growing up in wisdom and stature like every other child. As Jesus matured, they saw him as a human teacher, maybe even a great human teacher. They saw him as a human prophet. Jesus partied just like a human person. His first miracle was turning water into wine. You see, he ate and drank like other people. Jesus even took naps. Very human. What was not noticeable to outside observers was that Jesus was also completely, fully, absolutely divine. Jesus was God in the flesh, dwelling among us. But nobody really knew that aspect of him. The holy presence of Christ that day was enough to take your breath away. He glowed. His clothes transformed before people's eyes. You see, if Jesus had not shared this truth, you would never know it. But Peter, James, and John, they were privy to a revelation that was denied just about everyone else. They saw what was at the very core of who Jesus was. You see, there are some realities that you will never know unless they are shared with you. Gender is one of those realities. At least at the present time, you cannot know a person's gender unless they tell it to you. At gender reveal parties, gender is not revealed. Genitals do not tell you a person's gender. Chromosomes do not tell you a person's gender. Hormones do not tell you another person's gender. When I was born 67 years ago, the doctor did the best that he could and guessed, because the government of the United States of America requires the doctor to do that and to note it on my first legal document, my birth certificate. The doctor guessed male, one of the only two options that they had. But they guessed wrong, because from birth, I was a transgender female person. I am the oldest of 4 children. My father chose to make the military a career after I was born. My parents treated me like I was a boy, sometimes much to my amazement. In the early years, it really didn't make that much difference. I was a kid and I just did kid stuff. But as a young child, my father would go out of the country for extended periods of time, leaving me to be the man of the house, to care for my mother and siblings. It was my responsibility. He seemed to need me and expected me to man up and to be the boy that he expected me to be. In kindergarten, my best and my only friend was a girl named Martha. We were 2 peas in a pod. We did everything together. We sat close to each other in class. We played on the playground together. At home, we would pretend to read books together. Hers was the only birthday party I was ever invited to. You see, by first grade, I was put in with the boys and no longer had the option of being among the girls. See, I was one of those strange kids. I never really understood boys, the way they thought and the way they did things. I understood girls a lot better. So I learned to imitate. I watched closely what other kids were doing, and I tried the best that I could to be like one of them. I never quite hit it right, and they invariably really kind of noticed that I was just this strange kid. I always got it wrong. In those days, you see, I had no language to talk about my gender variance. It wasn't something that anybody talked about. Even now, my mother really doesn't have language to talk to me about my gender variance. When I was growing up, all sex talk was taboo, so we just never said it. And if you even attempted, out would come the bar of soap. That was my generation. And I'd blow bubbles for a little bit. But I just did not always feel at home in my own skin. My sister was born left-handed. And she was able to adapt to do many things with her right hand. But from my understanding, it never feels completely natural, normal. As a young child, I have an injury to my right eye. And so I'm sort of blinded in my right eye. And so my brain always gets two images. From my nearsighted eye, I get this real little image. In my far-sighted injured eye, I get a big image. And so my brain is always fighting with itself, trying to figure out which image is the real image. My gender variance at times felt like that. It's like wearing your shoes on the wrong foot or a shirt on backwards. Somehow you just feel that it's something's not right. And usually check, well, yeah. As a transgender child, I knew I was different, but I didn't know what I could do about it. So I just learned to adapt and to live with it. And you press it way back into your mind. Try not to worry about it. I spent most of my growing up years as an outsider and spent most of my time growing up alone. But the church was my refuge. We sang songs and we did crafts and I heard stories. As I grow to maturity, the church was still my safe place, my home. By becoming a pastor, I was not even expected to be like other men. So I could be strange and nobody really seemed to care. And the church was filled with women, so I could spend a lot of time with women, and it just seemed to go great. I'm a member of the United Methodist Women, and I've been so for over 40 years. Wonderful. So all through my ministry, I worked hard and I kept busy, and I tried not to dwell on gender, but it was always there under the surface. You just never can get rid of it because it just doesn't feel right. As a member of the Baltimore-Washington Conference, I watched as transgender colleagues were treated shamefully. In the back of my mind, I wondered if I would be treated the same way. I was shocked to hear colleagues asking whether or not if you transition, you are no longer baptized. You're not a new person. Just by changing your gender marker. Colleagues were wondering, well, I don't know. You may have been ordained as female, but now you're male. Is your ordination even valid anymore? Inside, I felt shame and pain, and it wasn't even my life. So I got. When Peggy was elected bishop, I was still living in denial of who I was. My life, though, changed, and my male facade started to crack. You see, many transgender women hide behind male roles, and they use those male roles to undergird their perceived gender. So some of the things that they're Navy SEALs and law enforcement officers, firemen, pastors. As a bishop's spouse, those things that I used to shore up my gender started to dissipate. And so my own gender illusions kind of dissipated. And I started looking for answers to difficult questions, externally and internally. When my own son, some years earlier, had come out as a gay man, I wrote him a letter of support and love. And in that letter, I shared with him that I always felt female identified. So I probably wasn't the best male role model for him. Well, now I was seeking to explore what that meant to be female identified. So at the ripe old age of 55, I came out to God and to myself as transgender. God always knew it. It was the way that I was created. I then told Peggy, while we were away at a retreat, I was afraid, I was terrified, because I didn't know what was going to happen after I shared this news with her. I was afraid because I didn't know where this path was leading me. I just knew that I had to travel this way. I had to be who I was. I couldn't lie to myself anymore. But Peggy has always been an ally to others. So I shouldn't really have been afraid that she couldn't be an ally to me. This is when I entered into the closet because I was cognizant of who I was with the door open. I went to counseling because I needed to verify that what I felt, what I thought about myself made sense, and I needed to bounce it off of someone. So I found a counselor to go to. After a while, I started physically transitioning. Hormones made me feel real for the first time in my life. The conflict within me that had been so normalized all through my life was turned to peace. And even though the hormone that I went on was estrogen, the same thing is told over and over again by my brothers, the trans guys that go on to testosterone that drove me so crazy. They go, oh, it's just peace. I'm at peace with myself for the first time. It's wonderful. So to those around me, I started sharing my transfiguration experience. What was hidden inside of me, I was sharing and allowing the world to see. I shared the name that was in my heart, Mary Charlotte. I put on clothes that made my heart sing. My gender expression showed with all its glory. Now, I'm the same person. And some struggle to believe what has always been in my heart and soul. Some still only acknowledge the outside shell that they've always known. Some think that I have been lying to them all this time. A few parishioners have let me know that I have betrayed them. That's the thing about sharing the truth. Not everyone will believe. Sometimes it takes others time to digest new reality. On the day of Transfiguration, Jesus was revealed to be more than what meets the eye. When a transgender person chooses to allow you to join them on their mountaintop and chooses to reveal to you their soul, feel honored. Hear God proclaim that they are a beloved child and that you need to listen to them. The only one who really knows your gender is the God who created you and yourself. This is a very intimate truth. But by believing the word of a transgender person, you may even save their life. Research says that even one person who believes a trans child can be enough to save them from despair and suicide. This is why your being an open and affirming church is so important. Thank you all. Let us pray. Gracious God, we thank you. We thank you for the ways in which you have created all of us. You don't create us broken. You create us in diverse splendor. Help us to see each other, listen to each other, celebrate each other, and be the people of God. Thank you for allowing us to have this time to be able to share in your transfiguration, to know the depths of your soul. Amen.